I don't have slides, so we can all continue to see each other. And I'm going to try and speak slowly enough for you to follow me. So please, people, start waving if I'm going too fast. I have plenty of time because I'm not going to use the full slot. So I shall make sure I speak slowly enough to hope that people will stay with me. I'm delighted to have been asked to be a respondent to this important special issue on decolonising psychotherapy. Psychotherapy's roots and many of its ensuing developments are firmly embedded within colonial systems of oppression, privilege, and power. That's the crucial issue for me in response to the last discussion. It's not about who's included, it's about who has the power in this situation. The profession has been critiqued for its part in further perpetuating these oppressive systems, for example, by Maloney, Epstein, and Madsen. And despite seeming to offer a more humane alternative to psychiatry, psychotherapy is still rife with regimes of power, as Foucauldian analyses demonstrate. And Miller and Rose particularly talk about that in relation to psychotherapy, as well as Foucault himself. The individualizing and decontextualizing basis for understanding distress, which is at the root of all psychotherapy models, in my opinion, diverts attention very effectively from the social and environmental conditions for distress and disconnection, and lends the weight of a psychological discourse to victim blaming for those who are victims of society's inequities and the material and psychological effects of these. I find it crucial to focus on inequities, not diversities or inclusion, but to centralise issues of power rather than the more seemingly benign or acceptable difference. In decolonising, I think it's crucial to not just focus on equity and inclusion as a whole, notwithstanding ideas of intersectionality, but specifically on the racism involved in colonisation and its effects both historically and ongoing. Training in psychotherapy combines the power dynamics and the profession of psychotherapy with the power dynamics of higher education, a real toxic combination, which effectively gatekeeps power through knowledge and reflects and replays the structural inequities, particularly with respect to race, which is evidenced really clearly in the awarding gaps in UK universities for students racialised as Black. So as we all know, because we're here, within the systems in higher education focusing on equity, diversity and inclusion, there's been a focus in the last decade on decolonising the curriculum. And it's gained some traction in institutional life and agendas. But it comes rife with misunderstandings, dilutions and tick box exercises. There's also a pushback within the academy against decolonising and a preference for the more sanguine diversifying. This is hardly surprising. Racism and white fragility are the clear culprits, clear to me, which explains this resistance. And I believe that decolonising requires the acknowledgement of racism as a structure and that no one is immune from its effects. There are no good non-racist people. So how do we actively do something about the different starting points we all come from and fundamentally challenge the power dynamics? This isn't a process of tick box exercises and simple wins, sadly, for the universities. But I believe it involves constant critical analysis and deep personal and collective work. Now, the strength of this is that such critical analysis should fit with the explicit academic aim to teach students to critically analyse. That's what education's supposed to be about. But the limitation of this is that critical analysis rarely includes a sociological and political analysis of power and the historical conditions of knowledge. And rarely do pedagogical processes and structures allow and support the deep and ongoing work required from all, both for structures of power to be acknowledged and critiqued, never mind overturned. I work on a counselling and psychotherapy training programme in the north of England, and in our programme we've been trying to focus on anti-racism for the last several years, and the several papers that we've written as a result of that, which will come with this paper in the reference list. From doing this work, I've learnt how psychological defences stop white people taking on anti-racist work, of course, including myself, because it's hard and painful work. It involves shame, deconstructing one's own complicity in a system without being overwhelmed by guilt. It involves acknowledging that we're never doing enough and are always behind the game. For me, it's crucial to think about pedagogies of discomfort and vulnerability, which fits with what several of the papers today have talked about. However impossible the endpoint of equity feels, it requires the relational responsibility to be committed to continue until the endpoint arrives. It involves understanding how the liberation of those who suffer most from oppressive systems liberates us all. Anti-racism is not an altruistic act to save poor oppressed people, which feeds the white saviour discourse. It's an attempt to create ourselves and relationships that enable us all to be as authentic and fully ourselves as possible. Nelson Mandela explains, "A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudices and narrow-mindedness. I am not truly free if I'm taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I'm not free when my freedom is taken from me. The oppressed and oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity." George Yancey expands this idea by using Levinas's concept of the face. He argues that mutuality is compromised by inequalities, such that all suffer the dehumanizing impact of struggling to relate to another in a subjective, intersubjective way, what Buber might call an I-thou relationship with two subjects, or Levinas calls a thou-I relationship, distinguishing who is the starting point in this and starting from the other rather than the self. George Yancey argues that white people need to, quote, unsuture, that this requires courageous listening, letting go of black bodies as props. Anti-racism and decolonising require deep deconstruction of our psyches and of systems. Racism and colonisation put us all in relational shackles and limits our human potential for mutual relating. I believe the Decolonising Initiative is an opportunity for personal growth for us all. As part of my attempts to change the power dynamics in the academy, I facilitated a research project with students on my training about what it means to decolonise psychotherapy and counselling training. This was an action research project that was student-led, and several themes emerged from this. The first was the importance of differentiating, diversifying from decolonising, and really being clear about the power relations and the focus on anti-racism involved in decolonising. The second was the focus on constant critical analysis throughout. And the third, where's my point? I've lost where I am, hang on. Yes, was that students and academics should be jointly responsible for decolonising. This is always a collaborative project in constant dialogue. So it's led us to consider how dominant voices can be ongoingly questioned as part of our training. How are students enabled to critically analyse information, the context of the knowledge they're thinking about, and which voices are missed? Decolonising counselling and psychotherapy training is an essential endeavour if we don't want to be complicit in the profession perpetuating and enhancing the inequitable systems that we've all inherited. It's everybody's business, but of course, in practice, it isn't. Those who are the biggest victims of colonisation are disproportionately affected by the emotional labour involved in decolonising. And I've been researching the emotional impact of EDI work in higher education, that's equity, diversity and inclusion, over the last year. The necessity for self and intersubjective awareness constantly in all kind of interactions, knowing one's triggers to feeling pain and powerlessness, and the importance of self-care in doing any of this work, as well as working together with others and allyship. The collection of papers we've heard today demonstrate for me the deep psychic and structural work involved in decolonising in many different ways. And I hope we can continue with this. I've no idea how long I took there, but
Great.
not long enough, I think.
Great. That's great. No, it's great. Hopefully some of the things that you've said and some of the things that you might have said if you spent longer will come out in the discussion. It'll be fine. Great.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you. So any sort of comments, thoughts? You know, I particularly liked the comment you made. I think you attributed it to Mandela, and maybe I'm wrong. That oppresses the oppressor and the oppressed alike. I mean, that's one of Fanon's, isn't it? In some way, yeah. It's no, but it's yeah.
For sure. And I imagine Nelson Mandela probably got it from somebody else, and then it's attributed to him, like many of the things he's supposedly said.
Thanks, Gillian. That was really interesting. I can see there's so much in it, and you're kind of trying to summarize it. But can you hear me okay? Okay.
I can. I was just muting my dog barking.
Okay. Forget what I was going to say now. Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, is it not just that human beings are really violent, that we're just a very violent species, you know, and we're always violent towards each other, even when we're trying to prevent oppression and prevent, you know, colonialization of some kind. Are we not just colonizing over again in some different way, you know?
Can I just interrupt you, because in the small chat, I don't know if you've seen it, but somebody wrote, "Is anger allowed here?" Yeah, and somebody else said, "Softly, softly." So
yeah,
might be linking with the question you're asking.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe human beings were a terrible species, really, you know.
I think what Adele spoke about earlier really says it for me, in terms of, I think we all have the capacity to fight for our own survival, and that when we're fighting for our own survival, we're not bothered who we're trampling on to get there. And at the same time, we're also a species that has huge potential to work collaboratively with other people. And actually our survival does so much better when we can do that.
Well, I think so too, but there's a bit of me that wants to say, you know, who we decide that we might be violent to is quite interesting, and I don't think that's uniform. And the whatever I mentioned before, the whole business about republic and the idea that, you know, there are different kinds of people, and some people are in top, some are in the middle, and some are lower. And you know, I think we're talking too about, not, I think, just about humans being naturally disposed to being violent, but we're talking about ideology. We're talking about how people can stir up that sort of violence towards, or rather direct the violence that people might feel towards one particular group or another, I think.
I just want to really thank you, Gillian, for your extremely clear and well presented lecture. And I totally agree with everything. It's yeah, we need to be straight. This is what's going on, and this is what's needed, and we all work together. Ideally, it's not going to be easy, but yeah, thank you.
And it's particularly difficult working together from such different positions,
Mm,
and the
absolutely.
necessity to acknowledge those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we need to listen to each other, to the different positions, really listen.
And of course, anger is absolutely essential. There's so much to be angry about.
Mm.
Yeah, when I think about anger and colonization, there's the question, who is allowed to be angry?
Mm.
And one anger is seen as more acceptable than the other. Yeah. Especially when I think of the training as well. Because in the previous training, yeah, I think as Anthony's presentation, talking about tutors being the expert and not often being relational. And so their anger can often be more righteous, more acceptable, because they're being challenged. Mm.
So Alexandra, can I just say, sorry, I'm really resonating, and Gillian, I want to say how beautifully I thought you put things. I really felt kind of touched and moved, and that sense of really leaning into discomfort, and I felt really warmly embraced actually by what you were saying. And I guess I feel really moved to say this is a particular moment in time. I mean, I live in London, I live in the UK. As a woman of colour, I feel a particular threat physically, actually, from the world currently. I guess I just want to put what we're talking about sort of not as far away from me in an academic sense, but actually right now, kind of threat to actually living and breathing right now for me in London. The ethnically diverse kind of city. So I think these sorts of debates aren't for me personally about a sort of far away space. They're actually about being entitled, about being given almost permission to live and breathe. And as much as I might want to offer myself that, I'm not sure the world in the systemic structures of power feel like that's possible from those spaces. So I just wanted to bring that into the room because I think it's so relevant of right now as the temperature, perhaps for some of us. Anyway, thank you.
Gillian, thank you. I remembered an adolescent that was in social educative condition that told me when I was walking the street, it is just like I have a kind of a target on my chest. And I told him, let it off, put it off. And he answered, it's not me that put it in myself. So I remembered Solange Faladé, there is a psychoanalytic, she lived in French, but she is from African. I don't remember from which country. And she said she had a struggle, anti-racist. She was in an anti-racist struggle also. And she said that we must see the differences between the people that are faced one to each other, because there are really different positions, and we must act from this difference. And I think in clinical work, this is very important. I loved your presentation. Thank you, Gillian.
So we have time for just a few more comments if they're there.
Nell, I can ask a question. I think I put it in the chat, but Gillian, I loved your presentation. Thank you. I can see how most of the speakers today are coming from quite a similar place. I wonder how we collaborate across training institutes. I mean, I know that you're up in Leeds, and I'm in Bristol, and I know there are many other people. I don't know where they're working, but we are all engaged in this particular, what I'm going to call a struggle, because it feels like a struggle, certainly where I am, and because there is a lot of resistance. I don't know if other people are meeting it, but I certainly feel that we are as a training, and so I wonder how we support each other in this endeavour to move towards more of an equitable training environment for all.
I wonder if I'm wondering what a non-resistant human race looks like. Would it look like those in power sort of listening and yeah, if I come from a personal perspective, because it might be easy for me to make sense, if I'm in power, and there are many times and places and spaces I'm not, but if I were, I don't imagine myself giving that up easily, however I had acquired it. I don't know if that's what one of the somebody speaking earlier was saying, that is that not what we are as humans, in a way, that this is something of our nature, not as a cop-out, but if it were me, would I give up my power?
Absolutely, Jessica. I mean, I don't know if that was to Gillian or to me or to everyone, but I think that's absolutely what we're trying to grapple with here. It's like, how do we relinquish our power and our privilege? What does that look like? And I think that's something I want to engage with and think together about, definitely.
And I want to thank you, Adele, and Anthony, and the others who have spoken today. I think what Anthony's talking about, his works of disseminating some of this information to some of these trainings, and hopefully they will be open. But from the other side, I guess it takes a strength to try and dismantle power, or at least challenge it if one can't. And I don't think it's going to be easy, because I don't see the other side saying, here's my power, take it. I don't think I would.
You see, I think what you're saying is really interesting, and what I wanted to say to it, which I mean, I'm not sure about, but I think it's a bit like, what do we see as violence, you know, and maybe that we can change what we see as violent, and I think there's what do we see as our advantage in those the people, because you speak as if there's a matter of someone has to give something up and then lose out. And I'm not even sure that that's what we're talking about. But I'm not even sure that that's where we are. Sorry, there's hands up. I'm sorry.
Can I just respond to that briefly as well?
Sure.
To say, yeah, I think framing it as giving something up is probably not the best strategy. And also not how power works. I don't think it's not a possession that somebody has and either gives away or does something with. But I'm interested in kind of trying to say what I've said or tried to say, which is this is a benefit for us all to have more mutual, non-hierarchical relationships, and we all benefit from that as human species if we can do that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think we're talking about trying to change how people understand that in a way, as a yeah. Sorry, so you've had your hand up for a while. Please speak. Person in the
I just wanted to. Yeah, sorry, I don't know how to put the hand up, so I'm sorry. That's why I'm putting my own hand up. I think what's really painful for me and really hard to sit through these decolonization, because on the one hand, I'm really sad because really what I'm asking for is to love me. That's what I'm really asking for this whole thing about decolonization is how can you love me as I am? And so when you talk about giving up this and giving up that and embracing, what's like any person, we want to be loved as we are. We don't want to have to jump through loops. We don't want the theories about saying, yeah, God damn it, just love me. Can you not take me as I am? Cannot therapy take me as I am? Cannot therapy take me from my breast, my uterus, my vagina, all of me? And so whenever I come on these things, what's really painful is the constant plea, almost begging, almost putting myself on the floor and asking you all, can you not just love me as I am? Why do I have to beg? Why do we have to have research? Why do we have to have logic? Why do we have to have science? And I think this gets, I think this message gets sideways quite often. And it's very easy to go and think about the other or this or Freud or whoever it is. But decolonization is basically asking, can you not love my Blackness as I am? I mean, why do we have to even have this when you think about it? Why do we have to have a thesis on saying, well, so-and-so said this? And because basically what that says, I'm going to prove to you with all this research that you're actually not lovable. And you will always remain the other person, the untouchable.
I think you must be right about that being lovable or unlovable is a very, very important part of it.
It's the only part. It's not part of anything. It is the only part, which we all is. If we want to claim humanity on any level, the only part that is important is that we are lovable. That's it. There is no if, buts, or and. We all want to be embraced as lovable beings. And I, for one, want to be able to love everybody else too. There is no buts. There is no other. We're just one, and it's unity. It's unity of being. And what we're talking about is the fragmentation of the unity of being, the fragmentation of what love really can hold us all together as one, rather than maiming us, rather than have these really long discussions. The discussion's also a way of the word of fragmenting as myself and fragmenting everybody here who shows up.
Well, I'm afraid, thank you for your comment. I'm afraid we're probably going to have to move on. I mean, I think actually discussions bring us closer together rather than fragment us. And I don't agree with that in a way. But of course, it's an important perspective you brought.
It's not just important, it's everything. Try not to dissociate. It is the only thing that makes us human. It is not separate. And so long as we keep thinking that it's separate, we are fucked. Excuse the language, but I'm pissed.
I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there might be lots of agreement. I'm not sure everyone agrees with you, but yeah, we probably need to move on to the small groups, don't we?
Oh,
it's about time. Can we do that again, or is it going to be going to be a fire, what